Good evening, beautiful people, and welcome to a glorious night in London. Tonight is the second part of In Conversation with Gustav, and where it's a series of conversations I have with interesting people in my life. And today I would like to introduce Robin, and Robin is writer, actor, and also one of the UK's, or actually the #1 public speaking coach in the UK. Robin, welcome.
Thank you. It's the first time I've been described as being interested, as being introduced as being interesting, but we'll see if I am or not.
Well,
I'll try and live up to that.
Robin is very, very interesting. I think, just to give you a quick background for the people at home, I've known you for 10 years?
Something like that, yeah.
And been looking after Robin and his family, and I've always been very interested in what Robin does, because he teaches from top auctioneers to banking to members of parliament to all how to speak in public, but also how to speak and behave with confidence. And today that's what we're going to talk about: how to be confident, but also speak confidently.
Yeah, how to appear confident. Yeah. And the thing about confidence is, I was working with the son of a client of mine who was about 11 years old, and the client phoned me up and said, "Could you have a word with my son because he's lost his confidence?"
Right.
And so I was talking to this young man, and I said, "What is it what is it you fear?" He said, "Well, I don't want people to think that I'm stupid. I sometimes forget what I'm going to say." And I said, "But those are exactly the same things that adults feel when they're under pressure." I mean, I coach senior politicians globally, and I remember talking to a guy who was running a big company, and he said, "Robin," he said, "I've got to give a speech to 2,000 people." He said, "Can you tell me afterwards?" He said, "if I'm rubbish or not." Right? Because nobody's actually going to tell me. All my team are going to tell me I'm fantastic. Right? He said, "But I need someone on the outside to say, actually, you're not as good as you think you are, or how could you be better?" But confidence is one of those funny things, isn't it? I mean, if we sat outside, Gustav, and we watched people walking up and down, right? And we put our heads together, we'd probably say, "Okay, I think that person's confident, not sure about that person," right? We're not interacting with them, they're just walking up and down the street.
Yeah,
right? We go, "Yeah, that's confident." So there's a kind of common denominator that all human beings perceive as confidence.
Right.
So a client, I'll ask you this question, the client asked me this many years ago. They said, "Robin, if some people are walking fast, some slow, some with their head up, some with their head down, some with their hands in their pockets, some not, but we still go, yeah, that's confidence and that's not. So what is the common denominator that makes everybody look or not look confident?"
Well, I think, from a young age, we get taught. I did a little bit of dancing when I was growing up. So the first thing you're taught is, chest up, shoulders back, head up, look at people. When you look at people, either smile, engage, make eye contact. When you have a handshake, firm handshake. And actually, what I've realized is, when you meet these butch men and they squeeze the crap out of your hand, it's probably because they've got some little man syndrome or something like that. Because to me, that's not confidence. That's just trying to show me you've got a good handshake.
Or they're trying to look like they're trying to appear confident. Yeah, the people who are too loud as well. So I think that all those things are true. There's a fine line there between confidence and arrogance.
Right.
Isn't there, right? So yes, you can have the chest out and the head up and things, but sometimes you walk into a room and you go, "Actually, you're annoying."
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between that. But I worked out that, and I think I'm right, that all confident people have a low centre of gravity.
Okay.
Right? And if you think about it, yoga, gym, Pilates, martial arts, all those things, it's all about a strong core.
Yeah.
So if you keep your core strong, then you're going to feel more confident, right? And you're going to appear more confident. You know that thing when I was staying in a hotel recently, and you come down to breakfast for the first day, and suddenly, even though you're paying a lot of money to stay in the hotel, you behave as if you're a child, right? Because there's a sign saying, "Wait to be seated." And you go, "Well, I suppose I better do what I'm told." So you suddenly, and you can sit. So I play this game with myself. If I'm sitting at a breakfast in a hotel and people come down, I play this game thinking, how many nights have they stayed here, right? Because the first night when people come in, they tend to go, "Oh, right, I better wait. There's breakfast over that one. That table will be nice," but And then the second day they come down and go, "Good morning, hello," and they go straight to the table.
Thank you very
and
much.
the third morning they just go, "Fine," and it's kind of bring me the guy. So there are people though that on day one can do that. Right. Now there are annoying people who do that as well, but I mean, and there are people who are genuinely confident, and so the genuinely confident people fit in anywhere.
Okay.
Right? In other words, they're not constantly going around doing, do I fit in, do I not fit in?
So it's almost like it's not so much about it's confidence to what sounds to me like it's also about comfortable.
Exactly. So it's about being comfortable. Now, when I was younger, I was about 18. My younger brother and sister played tennis. And I know you play tennis
Yes.
as well, right? And they had that little bit, and they had tennis cups all over the house, right? And I had no cups at all. And a friend of my mother's came around and they said, "Robin, where are your cups?" And there are hundreds of cups of my brother and sister, right? And I said, "Well, I don't have any cups." She said, "You don't have any cups? You mean no cups at all?" And I said, "No, I don't have any cups at all, thank you very much."
Shut up.
Yeah, and she said, "How does that make you feel?" And I said, "Well, I was feeling fine until you pointed it out." So I went out with whatever pocket money I had at the time, and I went to the local store and I bought myself a little cup, right? And it's my favourite possession, and it's a little cup about this size, little silver cup, probably EPNS, a little plate of silver, but it's a little silver cup, black plinth. But I had it engraved when I was 18, and it says, "The Robin Cup for being Robin."
I love it.
Now, I think there's something about that. I mean, it's quite sweet, but so I keep that on my mantelpiece now. But there's something about that is, in other words, if you're comfortable, if being yourself is enough, then you're fine. What a lot of people do is they put a mask of confidence on, and when the mask slips, then they feel foolish, and the audience go, "Oh, you're not as confident as you were pretending to be."
Yeah.
But if you don't pretend to be confident, you're fine.
And I think,
But you don't pretend to be not who you are.
Yeah. But I think, in today's living world, and, especially with us, on social media itself, I think people they can portray anything really of who they are. So, the mask you're talking about, that is definitely, I think it plays such a big role. And when you actually sit down with people, so I think unlike you, the first time when I met you, I think you are, to me, very real and you're very grounded in who you are. But, sometimes...
Not all the time, but hopefully, but none of us are, but yeah.
But, it's interesting when you meet people, especially in the theatre world, I think because actors believe, sometimes they feel they need to play a part. They can sometimes come in, and the first time you meet them, they can sometimes be a bit annoying. But the second time you meet them, they've kind of dropped that because they've realised, I don't actually need to put on a show. And then we can actually start the conversation about what actually matters, and you can really connect. So it's
You're
I
right.
can see that.
So my job as a coach, and my, not job, but what I do as a human being, is I try to make whoever I'm with feel comfortable.
Right.
And I remember bumping into the British Airways chairman, Willie Walsh, at a party once.
Right.
And I said to him, "Do you know that voice that airline pilots have?" Right? I said, "Do you teach that voice at British Airways?" Because they all have the same voice. Whichever airline you fly, the pilot goes, "This is your captain speaking, we're flying over 35,000 feet. We'll be arriving in Toronto in about half an hour." Very smooth. And I said, "Do they teach that voice?" Because I don't believe at home they do that. Right? I don't believe at breakfast they go, "Can you pass the cornflakes?" I bet they don't talk like that. And he said, "The thing is, Robin," he said, "you can't have a pilot saying, 'Oh, it's your captain speaking, we're flying at 35,000 feet, oh my God, that's high,' right? The pilot has to have done it before, right? Otherwise, it's right. So the only reason the pilot talks to the passengers is to create a sense of calm.
Right.
Because they don't have to talk to passengers at all. They talk to air traffic control, of course, but to the passengers, that's the only reason. And if the plane's bouncing around, you need the pilot to go, relax, silent turbulence, pop your seatbelts on, you'll be fine." He said, "But if ever you're on a plane and you hear the pilot saying, 'I think you should strap yourselves in,'" like he said, "we know we're dead," right? So we're screaming. So if you think of the continuum line, right, from the sheer panic over here, right, to over here, where there's a kind of super smooth airline pilot, I think where we want to be is this end, not because we're trying to look like a smooth radio presenter or anything like that. We're just trying to say, look, just when you're around me, let's just be calm.
Yeah.
Let's just have a sense of calm. Just be normal.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say, "I feel rubbish today."
Yeah.
That's fine. You know what I mean? We don't have to be Pollyanna.
No, of course not. And it is interesting now when you connect to people and they do have that sense of calm, it almost takes the pressure off, because you can just be, obviously in my line of work, hairdressing, sometimes, yes, we do talk to clients, but sometimes just having that silence, and with some clients, silence can be really awkward. And some people, when they're quite chill and in themselves, the silence is actually really, really comfortable. And it's just like...
And quite calming for them.
Yeah, and it actually, so this morning I actually did a girl's hair, and I realised for an hour and a half I've not said a word to her. And I was doing her colour.
Was she talking?
She was not talking. She didn't talk, I didn't talk. Actually, I faced her away from the mirror. And she said to me when I was finished, she said to me, "This was very therapeutic." And I looked at her and I was like, actually, you know what, you're right. Because I was so focused at what I was doing on her hair, and she could clearly feel that. So, so that energetical.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, if I was going, shit, this is, oh my God, the colour. I can imagine, my clients will freak out completely. But if I say, actually, it kind of, it's okay. It's good.
But everything is, as you know, everything in life is vibration.
Yeah.
So when people are nervous, they have a sheet of paper like this, right?
Yeah.
I saw a guy once give me a speech, and he was holding his paper and he was going like this, and he said, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been looking forward to giving this speech," and I thought, I'm not sure you've been looking forward to it.
No.
But what I've discovered though is that this is a top tip of this episode here, is that it's physically impossible to shake if you clench your buttocks. Now, not your own buttocks, right? I'm not with your hand, but
have your secretary
or
grab your ass
or somebody else
squeeze really tight.
But now, there are three big muscle groups. So essentially, the fight or flight response. Obviously, what happens is there's so much adrenaline in the big muscle groups because the subconscious brain is saying run, but you can't run because you have to be there. So if you tighten your thigh muscles, most men will do thighs actually.
Right.
So if you tighten your thigh muscles when you're standing, or your buttock muscles, or your core, one of those three, then what happens is the subconscious brain says, you're moving the muscles, in other words, you're running, which you're not, but it perceives that, and it stops producing adrenaline. So the whole cycle stops very quickly. So I always say to people, if you're at a, those networking parties that people hate, you stand around with your badge on going, nobby no mates, right? Something like this, and you go, who do I work for? I don't know anyone here, that kind of thing. If you stand there talking to somebody you've never met before, and you just tighten your thigh muscles, or your buttock, or your core, you will feel calmer.
Right.
And therefore you'll come across as more confident and more comfortable.
Yeah.
Is what we're saying.
Right. And how do you, when someone, let's say, come and book a session with you, if it's someone who works for an auction house or MP, how do you go about, so obviously you give them these tips about...
Well, only if nerves are a problem.
Right.
Everybody gets nervous when the outcome's important.
Right.
So if the outcome's not important, then we kind of go, it doesn't really matter. But I've been for job interviews, actually, that I hadn't even wanted, and my heart's pumping away, I'm thinking I didn't even want this interview, it's going boom, boom, boom. But I do. I walk down the street and see a policeman, my heart, it's an authority thing, but so I walk down the street and I see a policeman, I go, try and sort of act naturally.
You just look guilty, don't you?
And you look guilty as, it's terrible.
I'm not selling drugs, but you look like you are.
No, you are, because you're trying to act naturally. It's like when you come through customs, you go, I'm just carrying my bag, I'm perfectly normal, and they go, you look guilty. But the thing is, everybody does, so they're used to that, right? So in fact, it's the person who's not looking guilty is the one I talked to them once,
right?
And they said it's the person who's not looking guilty is the one they pull out of the bag.
Oh, really?
Because it's a human thing.
That's the worst thing, because obviously back in the olden day, I used to smuggle biltong from South Africa to the UK. Obviously not allowed anymore, so I don't do it. But nowadays, they fine you £10,000.
You're still a biltong user.
I'm still a biltong user. When I go to South Africa, I eat it by the bucket loads. But it is like you walk like this. You don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm looking up. I'm pretending I'm reading. Yes, everything is fine. But it's
And you're not allowed to bring it in that.
You're not allowed. So I've not brought it in for many years for people who are watching.
The other thing about confidence, I think, is about being present.
Right.
So so people often say to me, if I rehearse too much, I'm going to feel nervous.
Right.
And I think what happens is, if we then turn it into a memory test, right? So if you say you're going to speak at a wedding or something like that, right? And you've written your speech, and you think, I had a client this morning who said to me, it's so much better, Robin, I think, isn't it, to not have a script? And I said, well, but not if it turns it into a memory test for you, and then the whole thing becomes a nightmare. Because this is self-imposed now, this pressure you put on yourself. I had one guy I watched once who had his notes here, and he had people he was going to thank, right? So he was standing, and he had his notes down by his side. And he said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, a few people I'd like to thank. And I thought, we can see the piece of paper down there, right? So let's hold the piece of paper up and just say, I'd like to thank these people. And nobody goes, you idiot, why haven't you learned it? Just go read the paper. So I quite like it, actually, when people have notes, because I think they prepared. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Some people are very good at memorising. Actors, are very good at memorising. And then the trick, people always say to actors, how do you learn your lines? And I go, well, that's the easy bit. The difficult bit is making them not sound like lines.
Of course,
right?
For it to be, you need to say them so many times that it becomes like you are.
It becomes natural, exactly. And in fact, so another character says something to you, and the only thing you can reply is that.
Yeah.
It's kind of that, the way your character is with that. So I think the being present is helpful. But when we're nervous, we're taken off centre, aren't we? Right. So with the fight or flight responses. So what we've got to try to do is to centre ourselves. So the squeezing is very good. The other thing I think is helpful is the breathing. is
Right.
breathing. And I was taught at drama college all those years ago when we were learning to be actors there, is if you want an audience to believe you just have to speak from your emotional centre.
Okay.
So where on the human body is the emotional centre? It's the same for every human being.
Well, so you would think logically it's your heart,
Yeah.
but that's...
You're not a surgeon, heart there.
Mine's large.
Okay, huge heart. Huge heart.
But I would probably
Yeah.
say it's your gut, no?
Yeah, so well, it's really interesting, but it's good to be really specific about it. So the most common answers people give are head, throat, heart, chest, solar plexus, and stomach.
Right.
None of those are correct. It's the gut, which is below the belly button, so it's actually right down there, so
Right.
the pit of your stomach there. So if you breathe into your stomach, if you sort of sit forward and breathe, but your hand below your belly button there, and you breathe in slowly, in and out there, but low, not upper chest breathing, then what happens is you engage your breath with your emotional centre. I mean, it sounds a bit sort of complicated, but actually it's very simple.
Right.
So when you're, if you're the next person to speak, often, this kind of thing in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
And people often say this, I get nervous because it's mounting. Because what happens, the thought process you have is this, right? So imagine that Gustav is presenting, right? And we're at a meeting, and I'm going to present next. So this is what happens, right? So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, right, he's probably got about 30 seconds to go, then it's me, right? Oh, I should have had some water, right? 15 seconds, right, now it's me. Right, how should I start? Smiling. Hi, look relaxed. No, serious, look very serious. Business meeting, look serious. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi. What is it? What is it? Morning or afternoon? Shit, he's finished. Right. Oh, God. Oh, right. Now that's the kind of thought process that goes on.
Right.
Now, instead of doing that, what we want to do is to go, okay, he's got about 30 seconds to go. I'm just going to breathe. Right. So whilst you're still doing your last 30 seconds, I don't have to have my hand here. All I have to do is consciously breathe into my lower stomach, and I'm just going. I can pretend to be looking at you, but actually I'm going slowly in. So if you breathe slowly in, for a count of 3 and out for a count of 3 times, so that's 18 seconds. You can take 10 beats per minute off your heart rate.
Oh, wow.
And so you slow yourself right down. But it means when you do start, you're probably going to speak more slowly. Because obviously the fight or flight makes people go fast.
Right.
So the one thing you don't want to do at a job interview is to speak at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They go, so why do you want this job? Well, I've looked at the job reference, and of course, here's my whole CV, and I'm really, really excited about the possibility of it. And you go, whoa, calm down.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to work with someone like that.
Yeah.
Now, most people at interviews are going to speak a little bit faster, so they're probably used to that if they're seeing several candidates. But actually what we want to do is slow ourselves down. So that's sort of a simple way to slow yourself down is the breathing.
You see, it's interesting because the last time, so my mentor who I see, so actually Robin and I used to see, we share a mentor.
With us, yeah.
And I'll never forget, the day when before we opened up the salon, obviously I had to resign from another job. And I will never forget, I was on my way back from Heathrow, and I did a day with Isabel, who, for the people who don't know, Isabel, she's our resident stylist, and she's actually on next month, so do keep a watch for that. And I was sitting on the train, and Gavin was meant to go with me to resign as my witness, and his flight was delayed.
Right.
And I called Steve, and I was in a bit of a panic, and I called our mentor, and I said to him, shit, I'm shitting myself, literally. And all he said to me is just sit calm and just breathe. And exactly what you just said, he said that to me. And it was it's almost a bit like almost like an out-of-body experience, because it does bring everything in. And I always explained that day as the day when I received heavenly inspiration. Yeah. Because I've never been so calm and present in one time. And I can only put it down to the fact that breathing brought me in so calm that
it's very centering. It's very centering. And it also means when you speak. So most people, when they speak, if they're nervous, certainly if they're presenting or giving a speech, it's their centre of gravity rises. So instead of the centre of gravity being down here, below the belly button, normally it's somewhere between about here, so the sternum and the throat, somewhere around there. And so if that voice, well, there's a voice change when people present. So you and I would be talking like this perfectly naturally. Yeah. Then if in a business context, the person talking naturally like this then stands up, and for some reason they start changing their voice, they slightly project, and they're going, so if you look at the PowerPoint screen on the left, the bottom left-hand side here, and why I'm shouting, I have no idea, but this is the kind of, and then it's like a train they can't get off. Right. So what we want to try to do is to have the same voice when we're sitting down as when we're standing up. And actually, what we're trying to do if we want to connect with other people and come across as comfortable and confident, is we want to have equal status with whoever we're talking to.
Right.
So we don't want to talk up to people or talk down to them. So if we stand up when everyone else is sitting down in a meeting, we're giving ourselves physical status by standing up. If we also get louder, which most people do, then the status is balanced. You're not going to connect with the audience.
Right. So
counterintuitively, I always say to people, when you stand up, actually take the volume down a bit. Weirdly,
okay.
Because actually you want the audience to lean in. What you don't want to. So if you're too loud, you push people away.
Right.
And one of the simplest ways to hold an audience actually is to take the volume down, and everyone quiet, and they'll listen in. And if you're loud, after a while, somebody talking like this, what happens is it becomes white noise, and eventually you just switch off and you start thinking about when's lunch.
Yeah.
So I think taking the volume down is helpful.
But also, bringing the volume down is just, it's almost calming to the senses because
vibration again.
Yeah.
It's down to that vibration.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who just bought a lovely Mercedes, and she rings me from the car, and she goes, "I'm in the car." I'm getting okay. You don't have to shout, right? Because it's a very nice car, right? And the driver's here, the microphone is up here, and the engineers at Mercedes know that, right? They know that it's up by the mirror.
Yes.
Right? They know the driver's going to be here. Otherwise, what happens is you have to drive and go, "I'm in the car." Well, you don't have to do that,
no.
right? Because that's what the kind of microphone it is.
That's like my mother.
But people still feel, and it's because the microphone is that far away. And the same on Zoom calls. If the laptop is here, people feel they have to go, "Hello, how are you?" Right?
Yeah.
The microphones are really good on this
Yeah.
on the laptops. You just have to go, "Good morning, how are you?"
Well, that every Sunday morning, this is what I say to my mum. Mum, move the phone away so I don't see your nostrils, and don't speak so loud.
Yeah, well, it's the nostril shot, isn't it?
Yes, it's like put it there, look at yourself on the screen, and just talk normally. Now, she'll probably be watching this and think I'm going to kill you.
No, but it's very and it's a bit like, so we have a camera here, and it's a while away. So the temptation is to go loud there, but of course we have microphones on, so actually we don't have to. And I remember doing a play at the London Palladium, doing a musical at the London Palladium, which is 2,500 seats, beautiful theatre. And the temptation as an actor is to see the people up there, to go, to fill it with your lungs, to get them. But actually, in a musical, because you've got a big orchestra, everyone's mic'd anyway with little hair mics.
Right.
So in fact, I could talk at this volume,
and it's fine,
and they could still hear it at the back.
But
it's weird, it's because you think physically you want to shout,
yeah.
but you know you don't have to, so it's odd.
And so with your acting, how do you find, has that really helped you in helping people speak in public?
Well, not really, weirdly, because the first time I did it was when I was teaching a drama course, an adult drama course in London. And this was many years ago now, but by that point I'd still been acting 25 years or something.
Right.
And I remember standing up and thinking, why would these people want to listen to me? And I thought, well, they're all probably in their early 20s. They're not professional actors, and I have been doing it 25 years. I probably know something, a little bit more than they do, just from experience.
Right.
But I still, my doubts was about, but can I do this? And was I any good at it? And after a while, you just get practice at it. So practice is one thing in terms of public speaking, because the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Right. But it's like Gary Player said, the more I practice, the luckier I get.
The luckier. No, it is true. So I say to people, certainly in business, if you're given the opportunity to present, just do it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to say a few words at a party or whatever. And I think all of us should, when we're young, ideally, be taught how to stand up and toast our grandparents or uncles and aunts or whatever.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with a lot of times, like you look at things. So people will say to me, you're very good at doing extra stuff in front of the camera, but it's because I spend all my time. I love myself on the camera, and I always say, the lights come on and my personality comes out.
Well, no, I think it's partly true with you, but I think actually you're very relaxed in front of the camera. You're very natural in front of the camera.
But I wasn't.
So how did you learn that?
Well, you see, I don't know, because I remember the first time.
Dropping the mask?
Well, a little bit, because the first time I was in South Africa, my friend Wada, she's a lovely lady in South Africa, and she did a designer range, and she said to me, and she was also the E-News anchor.
Oh, right. Okay.
So she's very good in front of the camera, and she said to me, could you do a few words to camera? And my God, I looked at myself back and I realised, you look proper miserable. I was like, stop, I didn't speak, I didn't smile.
But that's what happens. So people do get very serious when they try to look confident, and they go serious.
Yeah. And when I looked back at myself, you know, that was the time when I realised, actually, you know what, smiling, being friendly, chatty, you do need to lift your energy a little bit more for the camera.
10%.
But, you know, you don't need to be like massively over the top. I do like a bit of over the top, but that's just my own personality.
Of course. So there isn't one way of presenting.
No.
And some people have enormous energy, the sort of Michael McIntyre type comedians, right, who have massive amounts of energy. And that's great for them.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of CEOs and I've worked with them on conferences. And you know when you have these big corporate events, right, and they have entrance music. And one CEO said to me once, I thought I'd come onto the eye of the tiger. You know, I said, you're not serious, are you really? Right? Because I said, what happens if they go, please welcome your CEO, right? And they come on it, simply the best or something like that, that sort of stuff. And you could see everyone in the audience going, oh, really? You know. So now
I love that song.
No, I love the song, right? But it's kind of a bit naff as a CEO to come on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what you really want to do is you want the CEO to come on and say, good morning, hello.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you may as well come up with
human.
Bonnie Tyler holding out for €1 if you're coming up to Eye of the Tiger.
No, it is, or Legends or something like that. You know, we don't, but I see a lot of senior leaders because they're not used, they don't do that much of it. Right. They come onto the big platform, and you can see them going, "Oh, I rather like this." You can see them sort of kind of turning into some big professional presenter.
Yeah.
And actually, what people really want is to see their leaders being natural and being big. So it's actually, so my job is to say, okay, I know it's all exciting, let's get all the excitement over with, and now just come on and can you try and be yourself. But being yourself is, for most people, it's 30 years of therapy, and we have to, a couple of sessions normally with people to get them up to speed. But often I think the one of the tricks is to make sure that the first thing you say in a speech is first of all very short, and secondly incredibly conversational.
Right.
So no corporate words at all. And I was working with a guy once, and he started his speech by saying, the first thing he said was, I have 3 objectives for my talk this afternoon. And I said, it's not a very friendly sentence, because objectives is not a word you'd ever use in life, is it? I mean,
no.
Nobody's ever said to me, do you know what, I'm going on holiday because my objective is to relax. And nobody's ever said that, right? So I think if we don't use natural words in the first sentence, it's going to make us feel unnatural. So what we've got to do is to help ourselves to be comfortable and confident by using words that are natural.
Yeah.
And keep it short, because we're most nervous in the first sentence. So for me, is if you know your first sentence, that's all you have to remember is your first sentence. And then, assuming you've done a bit of preparation, you can kind of wing the rest of it. But never not be certain what your first sentence is if you're giving a speech.
I think that's, but also, the first sentence, if you look at people talking or public speaking, if the first sentence goes well, your audience go a bit,
well, they go hurt, and so do you.
And then immediately you relax, and then all of a sudden, it's because when we do training with in front of, you can see when you start talking, the first thing you want to do is get them to be at ease.
Exactly.
And I always find, what I do is I teach for Walla. And we have, obviously, it's not major groups, but it's like 12 people at a time. And the first thing I always say to them is, welcome to my course. I said, whatever questions I cannot answer today, I'll find out for you, but hopefully I can answer. And it is making people feel that, just because you're standing on the podium, it's...
So a bit of humility.
Yeah. I think, that works. And obviously, humour works. But I think, that's definitely a thing. Yeah. I don't know how do you...
I definitely... humility is incredibly important. David Attenborough is one of all of our heroes, really. And
he is amazing.
I heard him give a speech once, and he started like this. He was raising money for his college at Cambridge. Right. So he had in the room quite a lot of money in the college. But so he was doing a kind of inspirational speech. And he started off and he said something like this. He said, I wonder if you can remember when you were 18. Now, you've kind of got the whole rub, haven't you, to do that? Yeah. Right? Especially if you're him, because we're kind of going to David Attenborough.
Yeah.
But I mean, that kind of just engages you.
Yeah.
And they're very simple, very natural. It's the kind of conversation you might have had if he was just standing with a glass of wine with him.
Yeah.
You might have said, Gustav, I wonder if you can remember when you were 18, and you kind of get, so it feels natural. But I think people often feel they have to go, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and it all gets a bit formal, and then they feel unnatural.
Yeah.
So I think the humility thing is really important, because I saw a guy once walking up onto a platform at a conference, and he had all his notes, and he tripped on the top step and all the notes. So he went up being sort of, you say chest out, super confident, right? Gets there, trips, all the notes go everywhere. Right? And he's got two options now. So he can either say, which he didn't say, he either could have said, okay, not the best start, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you what, give me 2 seconds, I'll pick my cards up, and why don't you introduce yourself to your neighbour? Right? Would have been fine.
Yeah.
Right? Instead, he went, sorry, one second, sorry, I haven't noticed. No, they're not numbered. Shit! Right, hang on, sorry. And we just got more and more
He
tense.
actually said that?
Yeah. So he said it out loud because he couldn't stop himself. So that sort of tension, that vibration, the audience picked up. So everyone was now going, ooh, horrible.
Yeah.
So I think, in life stuff happens, and it's how we deal with it. But
Yeah.
if you pretend to be the know-it-all, and then you trip, the audience actually quite like it, because they
Of
go,
course.
you kind of got, it's pride before a fall, you kind of got it coming. But someone who comes in going, well, I tripped, they go, well, yeah, it can happen to all of us. Do you know what I mean? Because you're being normal.
But it is, and it's interesting because when we teach, and now we can relate it back to the young staff, when we teach people in the salon, sometimes when things happen, I always say I'm brutally honest with my clients. And the most nerve-wracking experience I've ever had was so our colours are numbered, like 1 to 10, and 10 being blonde, 1 being black. And for some reason, there was a different colour tube in a number 10, which is very blonde. And my client, she's probably watching, her name is Wendy, she wouldn't mind me mentioning her name. And I did the colour, and when I put the colour on, I looked at it and I thought, it looks a bit odd. But continued, da-da-da-da. And when I got to the basin to take the foils out, her hair was turquoise. And I was thinking, my water's about to break. And and I just thought, well, I can either, like you said, I've got two options. I can either do like a bleach bath at the basin and pray to God it comes out. Or I just need to actually say, you know what, shit, something's happened. And I looked at her, I said to her, listen, Wendy, I said, are you in a rush to get home? And she was like, why? I said to her, well, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but your hair's gone turquoise. But don't worry, I can fix it if you've got time. And she said, okay, and what we did was, I took her, I said to her, I'm not going to put you in front of the mirror, because if you look at yourself in the mirror, you are 100% going to freak out, and if you stress out, you're going to stress me out, and then I can't think. I said, so I'm going to turn you around. I turned her around, she faced from the window. We did it within 45 minutes, she was back being blonde. And, she's still a client of mine today, and her hair's intact, and she's fabulous, and she looks fabulous. So it's but it is that...
I should say that doesn't happen very often, by the way.
It does not happen very often. I can actually...
But the answer is, stuff does happen.
It does happen.
Things happen, it's always how we deal with it.
Yeah.
Always.
And I think just being that, the honesty and upfrontness about it, I think that definitely helps it.
I think the other thing that in terms of confidence, I think is helpful is, so we're talking about being a little bit slower, but it's also what I call the 2-second pause. And this is where you wait 2 seconds before answering a question. So to demonstrate this, can you ask me this question? Right? Can you ask me, Robin, what's your favourite colour? Okay. So I'll answer this in two ways. First of all, the bad way, and then maybe a slightly better way. So this is the bad way first. So,
Robin, so what is your favourite colours?
Blue.
Right.
Okay. Now it's not
one.
Well,
yeah.
So it's not. I think I could be thinking, okay, well, I'm decisive, right? But actually, it comes across as slightly dismissive of your question.
Yeah,
So if I answer too quick, it's quite in your face.
Yeah, I was like, oh, and even though we've been sitting here and we're doing this, I've immediately felt quite...
So should we do the slightly better version?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Robin, what's your favourite colour?
It's blue.
Right, that's so much more welcoming,
now,
isn't it?
So the 2-second pause actually, so the pause is not, oh, I don't know how to answer the question. The pause is, how shall I phrase my answer in the way that Gustav's just asked me in this moment in the present? Right? And then it feels that I'm being, when you ask somebody a question and you say, morning, you all right? They go, that wasn't a genuine question, right? Yeah. So I remember being in a lift once I met a lady in a lift in Canary Wharf, and so Monday morning, just the two of us in this lift, and we're going right to the top, sort of 30th floor or whatever, and I looked at her and I thought she looked really sad, sad. I mean, not, and I thought, well, do you just go, morning, in which case she's going to go, morning, if I said, everything all right, she'd go, yeah, right, but if you ask genuinely, you're going to get a more genuine answer. So I said, I sensed that she was feeling like that, so I just said, good morning, and she went, we're both now looking face out front going, you're doing a lift, you know. And I thought, shall I say something or not? And I thought, I will do. And I said, how's it going? And she said, really bad actually. And she told me her whole life, what had gone over the weekend on the whole journey up. And when we got out of the lift, you know, we had the classic sort of, you know, well, you know, like they would say, this too will pass and whatever. And she went off. But it was a nice moment of human connection. But if I hadn't said to her in the way that I said it, you know, how are things, which is I genuinely want to know what the answer is, as opposed to all right, that's not a genuine question, you know, you all right? So I think it comes back to what we were saying at the beginning about being comfortable and making other people feel comfortable. And I think that whether we're going for a job interview or whether we're having a coffee with a friend or whether we're giving a big presentation, I think it's all about making the audience feel comfortable. And if we make the audience feel comfortable, then what happens is the focus is not so much on our nerves, the focus is on the audience being relaxed.
Right. Well, Robin, I think it's been amazing chatting to you. And for my second guest on, Conversation with Gustav, I think this is
thank you for having me. Lovely.
Fabulous. And guys, if you want to know any more information about Robin, we're running out of time, unfortunately, because we could have stayed talking for hours.
Oh no, you wind me up and I'll be there, but and probably you.
Definitely. So Robin, obviously we'll tag Robin in our post, but also next month, this conversation about confidence will be in our newsletter. So please do read about it. If you are wanting to book, you need to do a wedding speech, or, you want to ask somebody to marry you, or, want to do a CEO, whatever kind of line of public speaking you want, I can highly recommend Robin. He is fantastic. And also, just the tips you've given us tonight, just by breathing, being present, calm,
clenching,
slowing down. These are all things that, I can use every day, and I'm sure you guys at home can really benefit from doing these things as well. Robin also has a podcast. Robin, what's the podcast?
So the podcast is called The Art of Communication, and I'm really proud of it, actually. All the things I've done in my life, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, actually. They're short episodes, 15, 20 minutes, and my wife interviews me each week, or we interviews, we have a chat, and we cover everything from, we've done one on confidence, we did one on how you connect with your audience, we did one on how you see if somebody fancies you on a first date, we've done how to tell a joke, all sorts of things, and our latest one actually is on random acts of kindness. So it's a fun pod, The Art of Communication podcast.
And then also, just to finish off, Robin also has written a book called...
Well, I've written several books, but I think the one you're referring to now is called Speak So Your Audience Will Listen.
Yes.
And this is on public speaking, but it's all out there. But all this stuff really comes down to us feeling relaxed and comfortable and making our audience feel comfortable. That's it.
Well, thank you very much, Robin. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening. If you've got any questions, please send us messages, and you can also follow Robin on his Instagram. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.